Well, everybody's populating here. Good morning and welcome to the first Sunbelt Football Coaches media availability of the 2025 season. Over the next couple hours, we'll be joined by all 14 football head coaches from around the league. For media on the call to ask a question, please use the raise hand function and we'll call on you. Once you're called upon, take yourself off mute and we will ask you to state your name and your media affiliation before you ask your question. We're joined now by App State head coach Dowell Loggains. Coach, would you mind beginning with an opening statement?
Yeah, just excited to finally be in a game week. Our guys have worked really, really hard to get to this point, and this is why you do all the hard work, is for these moments to be able to go play in a NFL venue in our home state, and we're really excited about it. Got a lot of work to do this week, and the week's been different just because for us it's a Friday night game, and we've dealt with a couple issues with weather because our indoor's down. But I've been really happy with how our guys have responded, and we're looking forward to the competition.
Coach, first game for you leading this program, and what's sort of the anticipation level for you, your staff, your players, and sort of how do you rein that all in? Obviously, emotions are going to get high when the ball gets kicked off, but what do you do all week to get yourselves and your staff and your team ready for that moment?
Yeah, Adam, I think it's a really good question, but I think the emotions are high through the week because practice execution becomes game day reality. And for us, it's having a great week of practice. That's what we know. You rely on your training in these moments, and we're excited about the opportunity for sure. But it's also making sure the first game of the season, you go back and you watch the Kansas State Iowa State game. Like, you want to play clean football, and the only way to do that is have a great week of practice. And you don't want to you want to put a product out there that your fans are excited about, and the only way to do that is to train the right way. So happy with how training camp has been to this point. We're in season prep now, and it's really, really critical. Today's the most important day of the year for us. We need to have a really good day, and it's because it's a Tuesday practice for us on a Friday schedule.
And follow up to that, you won't get to play your first game at the Rock, obviously, but you'll head down to a large stadium there in Charlotte to play against a school like Charlotte. What are some things about Charlotte that you guys are looking forward to getting to do against an opponent like that of that caliber for your first game?
Yeah, well, I think it's really cool for our players. They get to play in an NFL stadium. And I'm very appreciative of our athletic director had the vision to get our guys in those type venues in our home state. And it's a place that we need to be able to recruit well. So it's another thing to say, hey, we're able to, it's not a home game for us, but it is a home game because it's an hour and a half from our place. And I know we're playing in Charlotte's backyard, and to compete against a program like Charlotte, I have a ton of respect for what their coaching staff was able to do at Ohio. It's a well-coached team. I love the way they play. They play hard. Their style of play is good. Coach has done a really good job with cutting down turnovers, penalties, and those things. So it's going to be a great competition for us. It's a great battle.
Any final questions? Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, Coach, one more for you. Again, with this game and the team that you're, putting out there for the first time, just what are some things that are must-haves for you, things that you need to see from this team to feel like, you guys did what you needed to do in this matchup?
Yeah, no, Adam, that's the great question, and it's the simple things. I had the staff talk to my college head coach yesterday, Houston Nutt, and it was the small things. It's ball security, it's counting to 11, making sure the substitutions are right, playing clean football. You don't want to have a bunch of pre-snap penalties. You want to be able to settle down and play fast and making sure the game plan is precise. And look, you got to be prepared for everything in the first game because it's a new staff for them. It's a new staff for us. Both teams have 50 new players on their roster. This is the first time we've really got to compete against anyone wearing a different colored jersey. So you have to be able to adjust as well. And how do you handle those adjustments? How do you handle the wave of emotion that starts the game? The resiliency to stay, whether it's good or bad early on, to stay the course and understand, trust your training, trust your fundamentals.
We are joined now by Coastal Carolina head coach Tim Beck. Coach, would you mind kicking it off with an opening statement?
Sure. It's been a great fall camp. Really excited about our team right now. We've come out fairly healthy, and we're looking for the challenge to go up to Virginia this weekend.
Morning, Tim.
Morning.
I'm curious, you played these guys last year, but I don't know how valuable that film is considering all the roster change. The coaching staff is the same at Virginia. How do you approach kind of preparing for an opponent that you kind of know, but again, a lot of new pieces.
Yeah, no doubt. They have changed their personnel quite a bit. So we're looking predominantly more at just the scheme, alignments, formations, things that their coaching staff who's been there did last year. And so we're basing a lot of it off of that. But you have to be ready to adjust, right? Staffs make changes. They find different ways of doing things. You're going to have new players. You're going to have new guys you want to feature or use in certain situations. So it's about us, just making sure that we're fundamentally sound and use good, proper technique and we're aligned properly and just be able to play hard.
They had success a year ago running the football against you guys. Some of those pieces are back, and they feel good about some of the other pieces they've added in the run game. What is your kind of take on their ability to run the football?
Yeah, they did a great job against us last year, certainly, and we're able to control the game and control the line of scrimmage.
And last thing for me is new quarterback for them, Chandler Morris, who's been around and there's lots of video on him. What's your scouting report on him? What challenges does he present?
Yeah, I've known Chandler since high school, since back in high school recruiting him. But yeah, great player. Obviously coached extremely well from his father. He's got great heritage and bloodlines, and he's a winner. The biggest thing about Chandler is he just finds a way to move the chains. He does what he needs to do to get the football team to rally around him and move it down the field. He's been extremely successful at every level that he's played. Big fan of his watching him play. So he's going to be quite a challenge for us to contain and to do a great job in coverage against him too when he's throwing the ball.
Thank you. See you Saturday.
Hey, Coach. What's it been like just having Grayson McCall on staff and just giving him his first opportunity of full-time coaching role this past spring and fall?
Yeah, I mean, it's great having Grayson here. We also have Trey Carter who played here. We have they bring the culture. They bring a lot of what they built into the meetings, the locker room, to the players. They're both bright young coaches. They're extremely talented coaches. I think both of them are going to be big stars in this business. They get the game. They have great relationship with the players, and they're winners. So very, very pleased. It's been a positive, certainly, to have those guys with us.
Definitely. And just to follow up, where's the biggest impact you think Grayson's kind of made in the last, 8 months that he's been around your team?
Yeah, just that. I think at the end of the day, his ability to he's been here. He's won a lot of games. He's a winner. To kind of instill some of those characteristics, qualities that it takes to be that, and he certainly will speak up when he sees wrongdoing. Right, like that's not how we do it here, and so he's been good about that.
All right, thanks, Noah. We'll go over to Greg for our next questions.
Yeah, Tim. Hey, how are you? Just one quick one on Xavier Brown for you. What stood out about him last year when you guys played him? It was his most productive game at Virginia in his career.
Yeah, he did a great job against us. You know what I mean? Like very surprised, not surprised in terms of the game that he had, but more or less like you knew he was a good player, but facing him in person was much more like, whoa, like this guy's better than he looked on film, obviously, when we played against him.
So for our media on the call, we're joined now by ULM head coach Bryant Vincent. Coach, would you mind kicking it off with an opening statement for us?
We've had obviously phase 2, year 2 of building this program. I think we've taken a ton of strides. I think we're a lot more player driven. I think we've developed some depth on both sides of the ball. I think just year 2 of the strength program of it's the offense and defense and the continuity of the staff, I think has made a tremendous difference, and we feel like we've recruited well, and we're excited to take this next step.
Coach Vincent, hope you're doing well. You guys get you're the first Sun Belt team to kick off Thursday night, but you guys get to do it at home. What's the importance of getting off on the right foot and getting a home game, but also doing the things you guys need to do to get your season started off the right way?
I think that year 2, I don't think I know that this is a big moment for this university. this is a big season, for this town and this university. And obviously, you want to start it off the right way. You want to have a big home crowd. We're having a whiteout, so we want this town is starting to, revive around us and around this university and athletic program. There's been a lot of tough times, and that's in the past. It's all what we're doing today and where we're trying to work forward to tomorrow. So, opening game at home, on a Thursday night's a big deal for us. It's a big moment for us as we continue to take those next steps.
Hey, Coach, and a follow up, just getting into some of the players on your team. We spoke to you at media days here in New Orleans, but you guys have now gone through, and that was a month ago. You've seen more practices in camp with your team and how they're interacting. You have 6 all-conference players returning this season. In the age of football that it is, tell us about what the importance of having that veteran leadership on your team has been and what you've seen from it over the last month.
I mean, it's critical to success. I mean, last year you've got 73 new total players that you stick in the locker room, and when you have a large majority of those coming back, we've got 33 seniors. We've got 32 juniors. Um, we've got experience at the quarterback position. We've got experience up front. We've got experience at tight end and linebackers and corners. So, all of our specialists are back: holder, punter, snapper, kicker. So I think we're a better football team. We've got to go prove it. And how much better, we'll see. It depends on how much better we get each day. But I like this team. I've been a part of several really good football teams, but I like this team. We've got to be able to capture the moment. This team's going to be in a lot of moments this season. Sun Belt's a tough league. We've got Alabama, Northwestern, UTEP. We've got St. Francis. So it's going to come down to really, how we continue to grow together and we weather these storms that are ahead.
And Coach, one last question I have for you. Last year I really felt like your defense did a lot for you guys. They made the plays in the big games, and they just it was an area of your team that you were really able to rely on week to week. What kind of with your defense this year, where do you think you've gotten better? Maybe even as special as that unit was, areas maybe you got better on that side of the ball.
I think we've made tremendous strides. I think we've gotten bigger bodies that are athletic and powerful. I think our D tackles, our interior D tackles are, you know, night and day. I think we've got really good, powerful, twitchy guys in there. I think our edges are deep. We've got depth, behind Billy Pullen and Cavante Wells. I think we're 3 deep at the edges. I think this is the best inside linebacker group that I've ever seen in 29 years. I think we're 5 deep, and you're talking 249, 251, and 247, 235 that can run. Um, I think that's really at a high level. I think our star is elite. He's got a chance to be elite. Gotsey back at corner and Corey and Wilson are playing at a high level. And we've added Duke Benson and Jay Harper, from Wisconsin. So I feel like Jair Nestor's coming on our safety position. Carl and Mack are back at the free. We lost Wyatt late in spring, but we feel like, Cam Canterbury, Jalen Foster, Jabari Tiller, um, Leonard Harris. We've got a lot of Chris Robinson. We've got a lot of guys back there competing for that job. So I like where we're at defensively. I think we're going to be better. We're more built to stop the run than we were last year, and it showed.
Coach Vincent, you talked a little bit about, how big this season is for the community of Monroe and the university. You've got a guy in Elijah Fisher who was named to the AFCA Good Works Team watch list, Werfel Trophy watch list ahead of this year. He's a guy who stayed committed to ULM through coaching changes, 5th-year, 6-year guy for you. What's his impact been, in the community of Monroe with his community service and things like that, and then also just on your team, especially, going into year 2 of your tenure there?
I think Elijah Fisher is probably, he's one of our MVPs. He's been here, for going on 6 years. He's seen it, the 0-10 team. I think COVID. He's been through all the tough times and the changes, and he looks at it as this is his opportunity to leave his legacy and to be a part of, from the beginning really to the turnaround. And that's what we're working for every day. But I mean, his impact in this community and this university is he cares about people. He cares about kids. You see kids wear his jersey. He always takes time out to help people and to really make people feel special because he's real and he's genuine. And then he's a warrior on the field and he's a captain for us. So he's as instrumental. We've got several guys like that, but he is a key component of this turnaround.
All right, for our media, we're joined now by JMU head coach Bob Chesney. Coach, would you mind kicking it off with an opening statement for us?
Yeah, excited to finally be here in game week. I think a lot of work obviously went into it behind the scenes here of getting this team prepared and in position to finally go out and compete. I think it's time. They had enough of running into each other and hitting each other. And I think there's an idea of getting to bring in an opponent here in the Bridgeforth is something that some of our guys have not yet experienced. And I think will be a pretty cool feeling for them. We've hit a couple scrimmages, one with the band, and practiced all the things that come with it. But it's a pretty special environment, as we all know, and having the opportunity for them to come out there and just compete against someone else. I think it was as competitive as a football camp as I've been around. These guys really love football. They love being out there and didn't want to see a practice end, any single opportunity they had. They wanted to just keep extending it. We're in a good spot here health wise and just got to continue to, make sure we take care of these guys the right way and have them playing a high level of football. But they're excited to compete. They're excited to welcome someone into, their home stadium, and we're excited to get this season started.
Coach Chesney, hope you're doing well.
Great.
You guys are, again, you mentioned having that home game, and a lot of players who haven't experienced the home game in Harrisonburg, but for you, what are some of the things that, you're telling your team to be ready for that moment, to be ready for this game and to execute at the level that you expect them to?
Yeah, well, I think when you look back on, it's often said that the first game of the season, a team usually loses it as opposed to somebody winning it. There's enough mistakes that show up and have someone actually lose that game as opposed to winning it. Then that best, improvement that you usually see is from week 1 to week 2. And I just think when I look back on a lot of the games that happened this past weekend in special teams, false starts and just holding penalties and things that knock you back and things that'll cost you to ultimately lose a game are things we spoke a lot about as this season's gone on, as preseason's gone on. We try to chart and stat everything and make sure they understand what allows us to win games and what will hold us back from winning those games. So those are things that, as we go into this, ball security's got to be a premium. We did an excellent job of it last year. We got to be able to run the ball. We got to be able to stop the run. We got to be able to win the turnover battle. And then we got to be able to create those X plays and hold the other team off from those. So they're fully aware of what it takes to win games. And I'm excited for our guys to get a chance to come out here and just know that they've prepared. They've done everything they could, to walk out on that football field. And regardless of how many people are in the stands or how many people are not in the stands, that is really, their opportunity to witness what we've been working on. So I'm excited for our guys, to get a chance to get out there and let it rip.
Coach, and a follow-up to that, with that, the excitement that comes with that, this is a game where, you have a preseason, have a lot of depth on, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And is this an opportunity where you expect to play a lot of guys at a lot of positions and do a lot of things that are, see a lot of things from guys that even, again, you've seen them on the practice field, but against somebody else, and, at the running back, wide receiver, your quarterback position, your offensive line, just all together as an offensive unit and heading into this week.
Yeah, I get your question, and it's very fair. I think that there is depth here, and we definitely want to. A year ago, when you look back on it, we weren't necessarily sure what we had and how we had it. Here, it's just very different because, when we came here a year ago, we did not know half of the team that was here, that remained. We just hadn't seen them in game live situations. So now we know everybody on this team. We know the depth that we have, and we know where we could put people in position to be successful. I think that there's a lot of different guys we can use a lot of different ways, and that is ultimately what we intend to do. Because as you know, who you start the season with is not often who you end the season with. So the more that we can do that early and get guys moving through, I think that that puts us in a good position to withstand whatever might come our way, as far as injuries or whatever might happen in the near future.
Coach Chesney, you got a guy in Blake Kendall that was named to the AFCA Good Works team watch list, the Werfel Trophy watch list ahead of the season, was your offensive scout team MVP last year. Can you speak about his impact on your team and in the community, as well as somebody that maybe hasn't seen the field as much, but obviously has made a big impact on your program?
Yeah, I sure can. He is a phenomenal human being, just raised the right way, cares about the right things, gives everything he has every single day he steps foot on this football field. And he just absolutely loves this game. But more importantly, he gets the big picture. I think a lot of guys get caught up in the day-to-day. He's a guy that really understands the purpose, ultimately of his life, and that's to make sure that he's there to uplift other people and to give and not just be one of the people that take so much in the world. And he understands that. He is, we talk a lot about our why through the preseason. Everybody's got to get up and present why they play this game. And, and it's a vulnerable moment for many. And he got up and talked about John Paul, who's a young man that we just met during the spring practice, who's, going through, a brain tumor situation that he's trying to get under control. And Blake, that was his why. He just met this kid not too long ago, and here he is putting that guy at the forefront of, his motivation for this season. And I think that's pretty impressive. And then just the other day, we had that bone marrow drive and Blake was matched with someone, to just the perfect kid, right, to go out there and do that. And Pat McMurtry, recently had given bone marrow, to save a life as well. And they just said to Blake, regardless of what trophies or jerseys hang on your wall, the fact that you're actually in position to save someone's life and willing to do it is far greater than anything you'll ever do on that football field. But that's the type of kid he is. He understands it, and just whatever it is and however he can help and add value, he's going to do it. And I'm just blessed to have him on our team.
All right, media, we're joined now by Georgia State head coach Dell McGee. Coach, would you mind kicking it off with an opening statement?
Yes, we look forward to playing Ole Miss this Saturday on national TV on the SEC Network. We ended camp on Friday. The guys were very enthusiastic, got a chance to connect. We learned a lot about our team, but we'll find out more about our team this upcoming Saturday. Coach Kiffin has been there 6 years. He's done an outstanding job. The 6 years he's been there, they're very explosive on offense. Led the country in defense last year. They had a tremendous front seven. They've replaced several guys with transfer portal guys, and I think their front seven is going to be good again. Quarterback will be his first year starting, but he saw action in a lot of football games last year. They do have a good nucleus of receivers, and the same thing, they brought in some transfer portal receivers that were productive at the places they were at, and they pose a tremendous threat. But we're very excited to go on the road in a great environment to see what the Georgia State football team is going to create for us, our identity and who we are going to be as a football team this year.
Coach McGee, this is a high-profile matchup for a lot of people on the outside, but for you, going to Oxford, just what's sort of the message to your team, and what are the things that you want to see from your club, especially in this game, to know that you guys took a step forward?
Yeah, offensively, we just want to play clean, have 11 people on the field, not beat ourselves, try to run the football effectively, be critical in those critical situations, and be a highly executed team. I want our team to play with great effort, discipline, and defensively, we got to handle Ole Miss's tempo, get lined up, and it's really just about us, how we can execute our calls, how can we have good eye discipline. They have a lot of deception type plays, but they do play fast, and that's going to be the biggest test for our defense. But we have to play complementary football, and special teams will play a factor in that.
Coach, and a follow-up to that, some of the leaders, and we got to meet some of them at football media days here in New Orleans about a month ago, but, Ted and Henry, different sides of the ball, but talk about their leadership and through camp and how that, has helped elevate your team heading into this first week of the season.
Yeah, Ted Hurst and Henry Bryant both are not vocal guys, but they do lead by example, and they've done a tremendous job of displaying their talents as well as their action as far as how they play the game, and they push our guys from that standpoint. We have other guys that stepped up to kind of confront and demand the standard, and like I said, I'm very pleased how camp went. We got a chance to connect as a unit, as an organization, and got a chance to share a lot of our whys and why we do what we do, and hopefully that'll pay off for us with the number of new guys that we have playing as well. So we're gonna get a chance to see how game moments really matter and how we all react to real situations, and try to let the moments just go by and live in the moment that we're in.
And then, Coach, for you, entering a new season, leading this program, what are some areas you feel like you've things you've learned about your team, even if it's through camp, through the last year, through, changing the personnel in your locker room, on your staff, whatever it may be, just areas where you feel like you've grown and your leadership has taken another step in that time frame.
Yeah, I feel like we're more detail oriented. We understand how to practice, what's required in walkthroughs. We'll see how prepared we are from a video standpoint. It's definitely harder to watch tape on opposing players because you got so many new guys that Ole Miss will be Ole Miss will have on the field. So that makes it tough. But schematically, they're going to do what they do in all three phases, and it's really just watching those guys separately, individually, to see what their weaknesses and strengths are. But I'm just really proud of the organization and the details that our guys are really approaching every single day with.
Coach McGee, how important was it this year? You came in a little later last year and into the start of the offseason, but how important was it to have a full offseason with this team to be able to prepare? And then how did that help you, retain someone like Christian or Ted Hurst that kind of set you up for success in year two here at Georgia State?
Yes, we got a chance to retain some good players, but we also lost some. But I feel like high school recruiting added to our roster, and we do have some young guys that I think are talented enough, and they got to buy their time and still learn what and how to do things, and hopefully they'll gain that experience over the first 4 weeks of our season. And I think it's just being here, knowing, understanding the day-to-day. Our players that we did retain, understanding how we establish the way we practice, how we meet, how we do walkthroughs, and they were able to express those things to our new players, and it gelled quickly. And I'm very appreciative of the guys, the 45 guys that returned to kind of show the standard that was set by them last year, and they carried that on through spring ball, onto fall camp, and now we're into the season.
All right, for our media, we're joined now by Texas State head coach DJ Kinne. Coach, would you mind kicking it off with an opening statement?
Yeah, really good fall camp. For the most part, really healthy. Excited to get to work this week on Eastern Michigan and really get into a game week. My guys are excited. Like I said, healthy, and ready to go.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Hi, Coach. Matt Gerad with Mike Farrell Sports.
There you go. Got some Mike Farrell Sports in there. I like it.
Just real quick, can you talk about the importance of getting that first win of the season? I know you've opened 2-0 in your career there. How does that set the tone for the season? And is it any different this year than it was the previous 2 years for you?
Yeah, it's huge, and that's all the work we've put into this summer. This fall camp is straight Eastern Michigan, so it's huge. It sets a tone for the season, and our guys are really excited. They know the importance of it. And I do think this year is a little different. Obviously, year one with Baylor and year two Lamar, kind of different ends of the spectrum. And then obviously someone like Eastern Michigan, who I see as a top G5 program, and somebody that can come in here and if you don't play well can really get after you. So they definitely have our attention and have our respect.
Thanks, Coach.
Coach Kinne, you've seen your team now for what's the rest of camp, and now you transition into a game week, and some of the things, what changes for you in terms of your preparation stance? Obviously there's camp, and then you're trying different things, but now into this game week prep for a home game, keeping everyone, level-headed but excited at the same time, and just sort of what your mentality is in terms of getting your program ready for Saturday.
Yeah, I think we started school today, so that's a process of itself, plus game week, and so we tried to get a big head start last week, and we had our mock week last week and did a mock game on Saturday, and so they'll hit it again, this week of what a Monday looks like. Obviously they'll be off and focus on their academics, and then what a Tuesday looks like, a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then obviously a game day. So the mentality is just go to work and go 1-0 and put everything that we got into Eastern Michigan.
There's always so much noise around just quarterback stuff, you know. I'm sure people have been hounding you to name a starter. Are there any other position groups that you're looking to really kind of separate themselves on Saturday?
I think really all of them. You kind of look at our roster offensively, defensively, and special teams. I think we'll learn a lot about our team on Saturday. So it's not just the quarterback; it's really every position. So I'm excited. It's obviously that's I guess a little nerve wracking in itself, but it's also exciting. And our guys had a really good fall camp and a lot of really good on good work, but at the same time, nothing really replicates that game like atmosphere. So I'm excited to kind of see what that looks like.
Yeah, Michael Adams, Austin Sports Journal. Hey, Coach. What did you like? What did you see in fall camp that you liked, and what you really want to work on and see improvement in this weekend?
I think we were very explosive at times offensively, which was really good to see in both the pass game and the run game. But I think just continuing that consistency and you're going to have that a little bit with three groups as we go and we continue to build that depth, rotate quarterbacks and all those things, and rotate really every position. You're going to have a little bit of inconsistency. So just the consistency. On offense, and then on defense, we've been top 5, top 10, whatever it is, and TFLs and sacks the last 2 years, and so you definitely continued seeing the disruption and all those kind of things that you love to see. So hopefully that continues on Saturday.
Coach Kinne, you guys had a prolific offense last year, did a lot of things, put up a lot of yards, but now you're going to have a lot of different pieces in a lot of different places on that unit. So what's been sort of something exciting for you on that side of the ball? That's a lot of your background as well, but something exciting for you to insert new pieces, but still stick to your philosophies and, just using different chess pieces.
I think we're always going to adapt to our personnel. Since 2022, since I've been a head coach at UIW and then at Tech State in 23 and 24, we're always going to adapt to our personnel. And I think we're very multiple this year. Maybe that's probably the most that I'm excited about. The year one at UIW, we're a predominantly 10 and 11 team. Same for, really since I've been a head coach. I think this is the first year, just the way we've recruited. You're able to go 10, you're able to go 11, able to get in a little bit of 12. Just a little bit more versatility with the depth at tight ends. You're able to get into a little bit more of those. Obviously, we've always had heavy sets with the extra offensive linemen. That'll continue. Some wildcat stuff. So we're always going to try to be multiple in personnel. Where we've tried that in the past. Where I think this year what hopefully be able to get in a little bit more 12, and we'll obviously still be in a 10 and 11 team.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, this season's your main priority, but in the week since the move to the upcoming move to the Pac-12 is coming up, I'm curious if any of the guys on your team who will mathematically have the opportunity to be part of next year's team have just expressed any kind of excitement or are looking forward to that in any way.
I'm sure they're excited, but you know how it is this day and age in college football. You're a week to week, month to month, year to year operation. So I'm sure there's a lot of people excited, and we haven't played a game yet though. So.
And for our media, we're joined now by Georgia Southern head coach Clay Helton. Coach, would you mind kicking it off with an opening statement?
Yeah, exciting time. I think for a lot of colleges around, 25 weeks of preparation, 13 weeks over spring, 8 weeks over the summer, and then 4 training camp weeks. You're just excited to play. Our players, our staff, and what opportunity we have to go out to California. First time in our school's history to go out to California to play a California school, and we'll be out there back-to-back weeks. And so it's a great test for our team to have that opportunity, especially with a grueling conference away game schedule with James Madison, Marshall, App State, and Arkansas State. So it's going to be a good experience for our kids. A very mature team going out there, and hopefully we'll play like a mature team. And looking forward to the opportunity. With that, I'll take any questions you have.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned you guys heading to California. You're going to play back-to-back weeks there. To be clear, are you guys going to stay out there after you play this week's game?
We are. I'm very thankful to Dr. Kyle Marrero and Chris Davis, our athletic director. We will play Fresno State on Saturday. Sunday, we'll make the trip over the Grapevine to Oxnard, California. We'll stay at the Dallas Cowboys training facility that they just exited and be there through Friday in preparation for USC, and then travel to LA on Friday for the USC game. So extremely thankful. Back-to-back weeks in California. Those long trips can cost you games in the future also, from wear and tear on your team and tiredness of your team. So a great decision by our administration, and so thankful for the resources to be able to stay out there for the week.
And adding on to that, you guys, the great opportunity that it is, it's especially when you get to LA, it's a place you're very familiar with, obviously with USC, but during that whole time that you guys are there and preparing for this and staying focused on football, are there any things that the team's doing outside of football that you guys are going to do, whether it's for team bonding or if it's just strictly business or if it's a good mesh of both?
Well, it'll be a balance, to be honest with you. This isn't like a bowl game for us. You're in a weekly routine that you're trying to prepare for the next game. And so it's going to be a little bit different because you don't have 105 bodies that we're going to be able to carry out there. So we'll have to, instead of having service teams, you're going to be servicing each other offense and defensively, which will be a little bit different routine for us. And so we'll be in that preparation, while we're in Oxnard. So it's going to be a little bit of balance. I got probably 12 kids that have never been on a plane before, and they're going to get the chance to not only get on a plane but go to California and to experience that. So I want them to have that experience of being able to do some things in California that you can't do in Georgia, and so it'll be a balance between the two.
And then, Coach, getting into sort of the football side of things, the prep for this week, the prep for the next 2 weeks, but obviously game one is the most important one. What are some things you need to see from your team this week to feel like you guys checked some boxes and hit some benchmarks that you've set for the team, specifically in this matchup against Fresno State?
Yeah, like I talked earlier, I hope to see a very mature football team. This is a group that's a lot of third, fourth, fifth year kids. We've been very fortunate in retaining our players. And so they know our culture, they know our standards, they know our schemes, and we bring back the same offense, defensive coordinator. And so to not have any change in consistency, I'm hoping to see that consistency in this game one. I've heard several coaches say it, usually in those opening games are lost more than they're won. The critical errors, turnovers, penalties, decision-making penalties can cost you. And we watched that in week 0 last week. And so hopefully staying away from those unforced errors with a mature football team is what I hope to see.
Coach Helton, in this day and age, how important is it to retain a starting quarterback and have a quarterback like JC French back? And how does that maybe set your team up for success, whether that's in week 1 or just going throughout the regular season?
Yeah, reps and experience at the quarterback position are ultra critical. I don't care what level of football you're playing, high school, college, NFL. You don't have a quarterback, it's hard to win ball games. And to be able to have a young man come back that was 6-2 in league last year, set the all-time completion ratio in the history of our school, coming back, and just to see the chip on his shoulder. Coming off of that bowl game where he did not have his best game, I remember standing in the tunnel with him and him looking me in the eye and said, "Coach, as long as we're together, that's never going to happen again for us." And he's had that sense of urgency from that game all the way through. He's changed his body. He's lost 8% body fat. Just the maturity of his game and how he's playing and the sense of urgency that he's playing with. He's going to be the reason, hopefully, we go from a good football team to a great football team and put ourselves in contention to play for a conference title. So it is good. Anytime that you're able to bring an experienced quarterback back that knows your system, that's had success in your system, it helps you sleep a little bit better as a head coach.
And then Coach Helton, you alluded to it a little bit there, but does it change your mindset, or do you have to kind of keep with the team and try to keep their mindset grounded when you have, the league leading number of guys on the preseason all conference team go from, maybe someone that was a hunter to now being a hunted team at, near the top of the preseason poll? How does that maybe change mindset, or how do you as coaches try to kind of keep that level mindset with your team?
Well, I think our guys learned last year. I mean, this conference from top to bottom is so competitive, and you got to fight like heck, to go try to go 1-0 on the week. We watched it last year. That you can't have any letdown. You can't get comfortable in this league because you do. We knew we were making a run with Marshall at the end, and we went 3-1 in November, and we had a letdown, and that cost us a chance to go play for a title. And so I'm hoping that experience last year of understanding that in this league, a league that has more bowl game opportunities than any Group of 5 conference in the last 3 years I've been in it, more Power 4 wins than any Group of 5 conference in the last 3 years. You better bring your A game each and every week, and that's the mindset that I hope to have.
And for our media, we're joined now by Louisiana head coach Michael Desormeaux. Coach, would you mind kicking it off with an opening statement?
Yeah, ready for game week. Certainly a lot of unique challenges coming in. I think the first game of the year is probably harder than it used to be, a few years back with just personnel changes and things like that. And certainly, Rice has, like everybody, they've got a number of personnel changes, but certainly new head coach with a triple option offense, which is always a whole lot of fun. And then, new play caller on defense. So, a lot of unique challenges with that. We're excited to open the season at home, excited to open in our new stadium, and looking to try to build off of what we did last year and improve.
Morning, Coach.
Good morning.
You named obviously Walker Howard's going to be the quarterback. What was, I know you liked all the people that were in your room this year, and there was a good battle spring and fall. What were there sort of one or two factors that really helped you make that final decision?
Yeah, I think Walker kind of embodies, kind of the best of both of those guys. I think he's a really talented passer, incredibly accurate, very comfortable in the throw game, can make all the throws on the field. And I think he handled that really well, which is Daniel's strong suit. And then, he's a really gifted athlete. He runs well, he can buy time, he can get out of trouble, he makes plays on the run. He's got a little bit more ad lib probably than what we were used to, kind of what we've had the last couple of years. So that's a unique piece that makes it fun. But really he handled the offense really well, coming into it with two guys that have been here for, at least a year, with Lunch a couple years. He jumped into it, learned the system really well, and proved that he can operate, within the system really at a really high level. And, you add some of his unique playmaking ability, and I think that kind of gives you what you want at quarterback.
You're playing a team right off the bat that's running the spread option, but a team that you really don't know what they're going to do because of a brand new coach, whole new staff, and so forth. Do you try to use the lessons from Davidson, or do you just sort of prepare for the option and hope that's what they come with you at?
Yeah, well, I think, these guys have won a bunch of football games together. This offensive staff has been together a long time. And Coach Abel's got almost 100 wins in his career. So they know how to win football games. I think you have to use the Davidson tape for their offense and kind of look at it and say, well, this is what they've done in the past. Certainly, I think with any offense, you have to kind of cater it to the pieces that you have that you think make you unique. So it could be, significantly different, but you got to start somewhere. And that's what we're trying to do. I think it's just changed a lot in the last few years. It used to do summer scout on every team you played because, you knew exactly who was coming back. It felt like there was maybe more continuity even in coaching staffs. Now it seems like, we get fired at a faster rate than ever too. Players leave, the attrition's, hard to manage. Now it's like you just got to spend a whole lot of time on your team and making sure you know your rules, you understand your rules. And week 1, 2, maybe even 3, you can get in there and you can go out there and go play. I think I talked about our staff today. We can't add clutter to our players on our end. We have to do basic, simple things that our kids understand and know really well because there's enough variables we don't know on the other side. And Coach Helton just talked about it. More games are lost in week 1 than they're won. Most people screw it up on their own and lose the game instead of winning it. And that's what you can't do. You got to go out there and play sound football and, let your guys go out there and execute things they know how to do. And, at the end of the day, if someone beats you, you can live with that. You beat yourself because you try to do too much or you're not sure about the assignments. Well, that's a tough one to swallow.
You mentioned the new stadium. How excited are you personally, the staff, the players, really the whole athletic staff? And is there any concern that that might almost be a distraction?
Yeah, I mean, we're really excited about it. I mean, at the end of the day, all that matters is what happens between the white lines. And, I mean, I think, we'll have a good environment. I think we'll have a good crowd, all that stuff. But, last year we played with a half a stadium, no one on our sideline, and that just can't affect you. So, if we're focused on what we need to be focused on, it shouldn't be an issue.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Yep. Thank you.
Coach, you kind of stressed it a little bit in some of your comments and already in these last few minutes, but just the internal component of your team. And, last year, a championship caliber team, the last few games that you've coached, championship caliber games, a conference championship, a bowl game, just with even these new players that are going to be lining up for you and starting for you this weekend, how do you drive home sort of the championship expectations or the things that you think you need to do to instill in your team to know that, championship aspirations are still, the mindset and the goal?
Well, first of all, I think you have to talk about it. I think you have to set goals at really high, and then you have to lay out a plan to get there. And we do, we don't shy away from it. I mean, I said this from the time I took the job, right? And we struggled the first couple years, trying to rebuild the roster. In Lafayette, the expectations here are to play for conference championships. And, that expectation has been set, and it's something that we embrace, and it's something that you strive to achieve. I mean, it's fun to do things that people are excited about. It's fun to do things that are significant. It's a lot of work, but I think you have to talk about it. You have to say what the goals are, and you have to lay out the plan to get there. But the reality of it, though, Adam, coaches can't drive it home. I don't think you can. I think the culture is what has to drive it home. And culture is one of the hardest things to build and to create because it's so abstract, right? Like it's what do you do to just really build a good culture? It's hard to do. But once you have it, it's really hard to beat. And I think your players are what embodies your players create the culture, and it doesn't stop. It's constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. And there are standards every year that you expect to be upheld, but the team itself kind of determines the direction that group takes. And every year is different. So, we've been fortunate. We've been able to retain some really good football players, but some great kids that have been here for a long time. The other day I asked them in the team room to raise their hand about how many guys have redshirted, and I should know the number, but I mean, I'd say 90% of our team has redshirted. They're guys that have been here for a long time. And so they understand what the expectation is, and the new guys, and I've said this from the beginning since January, the 7 mid-year guys or the 9 mid-year guys that we had, 2 high school kids and 7 transfers, they hit the ground running. They jumped in with both feet. They bought all in wholesale, and they jumped right in, and they kind of fit in seamlessly. You add the freshmen in June, and they really have no choice. It's, hey, if you want to be this type of player, then you have to behave this type of way, and you have to do these things to be successful. And again, I don't think coaches, I think you have to foster it, and you have to kind of provide a vision, and you have to kind of provide motivation and an outline to get there. But the players have to do it. And, our kids love to practice. This fall camp was, people talk about, it was fun. I mean, these guys showed up every day and worked their tails off. And, at some point, I know we'll have a good football team this year. I think week 1 sets the floor for what it can be. We have high expectations, even with a bunch of new pieces in there in important spots. But I'm excited to see it. How high can we set the floor in week 1? And then, figure out how much work we got to do to get where we want to be in the end. So it's fun to be in a place with expectations. It's fun for people to expect things of you. It means people care about what you're doing. And, we embrace that. We lean into it.
All right. For our media, we're joined now by Troy head coach Gerad Parker. Coach, would you mind kicking it off with an opening statement?
Yep, I'll be brief. It's good to see everybody again. Thank God football season is here. Excited for year 2 here at Troy, and certainly grateful for the Sun Belt Conference and the job you all do and where we're headed again. So with that, I'll take questions. Excited.
Hey, Coach, the fact that Nichols has already played a game, what do you take from that? You've seen them play, but maybe they've had a little bit of time to get the kinks out. So just how do you approach that?
Yeah, I certainly do not believe that you can dismiss the quality or the advantages of playing a game. I think for as much discussion as there is about playing game one and going from the biggest improvement to game two, as everybody talks about, there are truths to that. For us, we have to treat it as an advantage for us to have had one more week to prepare and see them and see who does a better job of that. So, it was good to see them on film, impressed by them and the job they've done in year one for Coach Rybacke and all those things. So it does give them an advantage in playing and being able to execute from sideline and all the things that go into playing your first one. And we've got to turn into advantage that we've seen them.
And what have you seen out of Goose in camp so far, coming back healthy this year? What are you expecting when you get set on the field?
Yeah, I think, Goose is certainly the biggest thing has been from January till now with Coach Bauer, the strength staff, and himself. He's went through a pretty large body change. I mean, he has slimmed up, gotten strong, done a lot of things to help him be more durable. His leadership skills are out the roof, but always have been. I think he's won over our locker room even more now than he had a year ago, and has really approached it as being the leader of our offense and the locker room and holding guys accountable in the right way through everything we've done in our run and pass game. So he's just taken steps that you take and becoming a veteran that have been fun to see. And like I said, he's done a lot with his body to ensure being durable and doing everything he can to stay healthy.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Hey, Coach Parker, hope you're doing good. I know at the end of fall camp, you guys were talking about how much you guys were emulating games going into this. And so there were a few things that you guys were still working on piecing together for that. And so what really came together towards the end of camp that you expect to really show off on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And I know everything you're doing in practice is to prepare for games. So I don't want to, but my point is we didn't do enough things that do, meaning like sideline management, how we prepare coming off instead of letting your guys creep out to the numbers and not practice timeouts, all the things you take for granted. Then in game one, you're like, okay, we need to do more of this. So as simple things as the mechanics of a game. And then as far as on field, I just really attacking our situational football and 2-minute drills for offense, defense, kicking, coming off and off on and off the field in 2-minute situations, our red zone and third down practice and how we prepared in the games. And we scripted less. We played more game-like situations and made all of our coordinators call the game as is instead of practicing more scripting. So I think those steps have put us in a position to feel better prepared, both as a staff and players.
Yeah, for sure. And so what would you say some keys are for this win on Saturday that you guys are hoping to get?
Well, you face defense in Nichols that returns 9 of 11 starters and statistically is one of the best defenses in the conference and in the country at their level. And they've just picked up where they left off. So we're going to have to manage a really good defense offensively and then handle some really good schemes and an offensive line that returns 3 starters as well. They've done a really good job in that area. They take care of the football and they play sound, and you could see that in their opening game. So I think us taking care of the football and winning turnover margin and managing, playing a really good defense is going to be a big key to the game.
Yeah, I agree. And I have just one more question and then I'll be done. But you finally have a good, healthy roster, heading into the season. Last year, you ended up having a lot of guys that got hurt. And this is, the players now going into the second year. So what can we expect from a few of those players, and who do you expect those players to be standouts for you guys this Saturday?
Yeah, it's that's loaded. Listen, it's no different. Just in hearing Des talk about Lafayette, we have the same expectations here at Troy, and managing expectations and making sure we're better is my job. It's the reason I wanted this job, and feel blessed to have it. I think for us to be better, I've got to do my job better. That's a long list of things I won't mention. And then from the player side, I think you see a revamped secondary. To stay away from names, you have two new starting corners, a new starting safety, one returning safety that's back, and Justin Poe. Some familiar names in Devin Lafayette and Jordan Stringer at backer. And then with Louis Medina being the most familiar name at D-line, but Elijah Davis and Talik Robbins and those guys are new names that are now starters for us. So revamped defensively, and we expect to play much better on defense. And then offensively, some familiar faces, but our running back room is brand new. The wideout room is unproven and has to grow, and we expect it to, but we're sure glad that we have some returning starters at O-line as well, and have Goose Crowder back and Ethan Connor back. So I won't wear you out with too many, but all those names better show up for us to be better.
Yeah, completely. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, media, we have with us Marshall head coach Tony Gibson. Coach, would you mind kicking it off with an opening statement?
Yeah, appreciate you guys, what you do. Looking forward to game week now. I'm glad we start with the easy opponent. So, it's all good. But just looking forward to watching these guys prepare the rest of this week. We've had a great fall camp, and now it's just time to go play somebody else, see where we're at.
Coach Gibson, this is going to be your first game leading the program. You take it on the road, play Georgia, but for you as a head coach, what's the most exciting thing for you, and what's sort of the most exciting thing that you want your team to experience, under your leadership specifically in this matchup?
Yeah, I think it's very exciting for our kids to go play at a venue in Athens, Georgia. We're going to have 80,000 plus. Going to be a great, great venue for our kids to go experience. And a lot of our guys, they think that they can play at that level. You hear them all the time saying, well, I'm not there for whatever reason. Well, you can't hide from it now. So we're going to get to showcase what we got and what our players got at 3:30 on ESPN. So can't ask for a bigger opener.
Hey, Coach, just you talked a lot last week about getting the scout teams rolling and getting ready. Just curious, any strides or anything you noticed, positives you could take away from that heading into this week?
Yeah, we had some great practices to end the week. We had our mock game on Friday night. Had a very, spirited practice last night, a lot of juice. Today's the day off for the guys. So, let them rest up a little bit today and then get back after it tomorrow morning. And again, I think everybody understands the urgency we need to practice with this week and prepare with.
And Coach Gibson, a lot of different players that you haven't coached before, and specifically in a game, but you've been working with this group through camp. What sort of things are you hoping to see from them specifically in this game that is going to give you sort of an idea of what your team can be for the rest of this season?
Yeah, our number one goal in this game is, we have to go. We have to be able to execute it. And obviously it's not going to be easy playing a great Georgia team, but I don't want the game to get sloppy. I don't want us to have a lot of pre-snap penalties, turnovers, things like that, giving up explosive plays. I want us to try to win one play and then line up and win another play. And if you do that, then our goal is to maybe win a quarter and then win 2 quarters. So I just want to see them execute, not make a lot of mistakes, don't want loafing. But the biggest thing are, the pre-snap penalties, turnovers. Those are things that we're really been harping on, and that's keys to victory for us.
Coach, you've obviously been in tough situations in the past. I guess what are the words of wisdom, if you will, that you're passing on to maybe some of the younger guys or anybody who hasn't?
Yeah, I think again, we all know, we're playing a top 5 team. It's not going to be easy. But again, I'm more worried about Marshall right now than Georgia. How are our guys going to react to that crowd, to the athleticism and the physicality that Georgia's going to bring. And, we just have to, again, we have to be us and we have to be the best version of us. And then when that game's over, then let's see where we go from there. But again, we're going down there to play a great team, and, we're going down to try to win the football game. We're not going down just to collect a check, and I want our guys to be at their best. And, let's see what happens.
All right, for our media, we're joined now by Arkansas State head coach Butch Jones. Coach, would you mind kicking it off with an opening statement?
Sure. Well, first of all, good to see everyone. I know it's been a fast summer for everyone. I think everyone's really excited to play. But, going into the first games are always the games of the unknown. And I think really the landscape and dynamic of college football now, when you talk about the game and the unknown, it's not just about your opponent, but I think it's about your current team as well. And so we continue to be work in progress. I think the biggest thing for us is, what does winning football look like? Before you can win the game, you have to not lose the game. And so really, what does it take to play winning football? Your pride in your preparation leads to pride in your performance, all those little things that go into it. And then I think when you look at game one on top of the unknowns, we're playing a football team and a football program that knows how to win in SEMO. They were a playoff team last year. They were a champion in their conference, and they've had success, and their players in their program know what winning football looks like. And so I think, with this football team with 70 newcomers, you can't take anything for granted, right down to, situational mastery of the different situations that go into the game. But, the first things first, who are we? What we're about. This is the infant stages of building our identity of who we are and what we want to become. I think we've had a very productive training camp, but again, you're never going to really know until the in-game management comes on. Now there's consequences for your actions, for your discipline, for your details, for your execution. And that's what makes the first game exciting, but also I'll know a little bit more of where we're at after game one and moving forward.
Coach, in the past, you've always mentioned playing a player-led team, and this is a year that you're turning quite a few guys, your guys that have been here since day one. In that sense, how has this fall camp been compared to previous fall camps where you're really rebuilding, and now this you got some guys on the back?
Well, you broke up a little bit, Luke, but I think I understand your question. And I think it's a really good question. And I think, everything we do is based off of connectivity and synergy and understanding what it takes to play complementary football and really being 11 for 11 and all that goes into it. And so we've worked really hard on that. But again, you really never know about your team chemistry being a player-led team until really you go through some adversity. Adversity really kind of exposes who you are, exposes your leadership. And all of us in college football are going to really go through the natural adversities that a long football season brings about. So, how adaptable are you to be able to manage those long adversities, those adversities of a season? We've tried to kind of manufacture those throughout the course of training camp, but you really don't know until you have that. But, we worked hard on our connection. I'll give you an example. We had our only day off on Saturday, and I'm sitting at my house and had over 40 individuals show up at my house to go swimming and hang out with each other. So as a coach, you kind of want that quiet time, but that's a good problem. We had over 40 individuals show up at my house. So I think they're trying. I think they really invested in each other. But again, you never really know until you're in it for real. In a few days, it's going to be for real.
Hey, Coach, just how do you feel about your offensive line now compared to the start of camp? I know there was at one point you were still trying to work through figuring out who your top 5, 10, so on and so on.
Well, I think they still continue to be work in progress. And we have a number of individuals that are still battling for the starting positions. I think when you really look at our depth chart on both sides of the ball, we really don't have at a lot of positions clear-cut starters, which I think we have more depth than we've ever had in our program. So they'll continue to compete. I think the biggest thing for us is what 5 individuals work well together. But then, like we always talk about, who's your number 6, who's your number 7, who's your number 8. Those are every bit as vital as your first 5. And so you can never have enough quality depth. I think we've really tried to recruit that. But we still have some position battles, and who knows, they may compete all the way through pregame warmups. And, really a depth chart doesn't mean anything. It's just really who runs out there for the first play of the game. So we'll know more, but I've liked their work. I think they've worked really hard. I think they're working well together. But we'll continue to evaluate that group throughout the course of preparation this week and really into every week.
Coach, you touched on SEMO a little bit. What are you seeing out of them that you need to see your guys take care of this week? And kind of a two-part question here for offense, defense, special teams, all three phases of the game. What do you need to see this week that you know you guys are headed in the right direction?
Well, I think first of all, it starts with us. And it starts obviously with a lot of things. And it starts first and foremost with taking care of the football. When you look at the first games, the games of the unknowns, it usually comes down to your eye discipline, missed tackles, taking care of the football, special teams, explosive plays, things like that. I think the ability to handle situations and the flow, ebbs and flows of a game. So I think there's a lot that goes into the first game. So as a coach, you try to really expose them to everything. But for us, obviously it starts with taking the football away, tackling in space. They're going to challenge us. They have a quarterback that's 6'8". He can hang in the pocket. He can throw the football. Defensively, their entire defensive line is back. They're very talented in the back end. So again, it's going to be a great challenge against a quality opponent, but it really starts with taking care of us first and foremost. And again, the small details, the meticulous attention to details that it takes to play winning football.
For our media, we're joined now by Old Dominion head coach Ricky Rahne. Coach, would you mind kicking it off with an opening statement?
Yeah, excited to get a new season started. Obviously, we've got a great challenge ahead of us in Indiana, who's a college football playoff from last year, and we know they've got a great coaching staff, and it'll be a good environment. But our kids are looking forward to it and see it as an opportunity and ready to go.
Coach Rahne, you just mentioned the challenge that's ahead of you, but you guys really constructed a pretty competitive non-conference schedule as a whole this year, and this is the first of those four steps. So just some of the things that are important to you in this matchup and what you want to see out of your team in this game.
Well, I mean, I think any coach in the country wants to see his team play clean in this first game. You don't want it to be sloppy. You want to protect the football. You want to tackle as well as you possibly can. And you want to play clean from a substitution standpoint and on special teams, you want to make sure that you play clean. So I think those are the things you want to see. And then the other thing I just want to see is play fast and physical, and get out there and play the way I know our kids are capable of playing.
And I guess a follow-up to that would be, you have, this game on the road, and obviously it's against, a Curt Cignetti coach team who you're very familiar with from his times at JMU in this league. Maybe his schemes and his philosophies are the same, but what are some, wrenches or, kinks in what could be his game plan and his identity as an offensive team and as a head coach that you're familiar with that might benefit you in this type of matchup?
I mean, I think that there's one of the things he does so well is he's able to maintain his identity and maintain his overall coaching philosophy while making little changes here and there. And that's one of the things he does a great job of. I think any good football coach will do that, is grow from year to year, but overall, you're getting the same overall identity and mentality, and they're going to adjust to the personnel they have, and I think that that's one thing he does really well. So we know we're going to get a well-coached football team. We know it's a talented team, and our kids are ready. Our kids feel like every coach that's going to get on here, our kids are ready to play somebody else, right? They're ready to play somebody in a different colored uniform and get out there. And I would just like to say, in my perspective, we're the only sport that doesn't have preseason. We're the only sport that doesn't have scrimmages. And I like it that way. I actually love it that way. I mean, I'd like to maintain the fact that we are different from every other sport in the world. And to me, that's what makes us special.
Coach, and then one more for a follow-up, more or less about the opponent, more so about Old Dominion. You just finished up another camp with your team. What's maybe something that was most rewarding for you that came out of that camp that has you maybe a little more excited than you didn't really see on the surface before you started camp, maybe?
I just think we have more player-led leadership than we've ever had before. I think it's this, a lot of maturity. We just had a welcome back event with the entire athletics department, and our guys are running that on their own, right? Like, hey, sit down, pay attention, and doing those sort of things. And guys are really leading and they're not waiting for the coaches to take the reins on that. They're not waiting for 3 or 4 players to do that. They're all leading each other. And I think that that's something that shows a positive culture. And that's something that we can build on throughout the year.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate that. We're joined now by Southern Miss head coach Charles Huff. Coach, would you mind kicking it off with an opening statement?
Yeah, well, I know Coach Rahne is, making a statement for the, entire landscape of college football, but we're kind of really focused on Southern Miss down here. So if we play scrimmages or not, and what we know the rest of the college athletic system is, I'm not really sure of. I know we got a lot of work to do. Obviously there's a lot of excitement that, comes with preseason and comes with camp and comes with all of the changes. Obviously, playing a huge challenge this week with a SEC opponent who's, in my opinion, is the best conference in the world. There's a reason that conference is different. You'll get a chance to see that throughout the season, especially this first game. The size, the strength, the depth, the level of coaching at that level is at a premium. So it's going to be a huge challenge for us. We're focused on just trying to get better. And I know everyone's like, well, you brought the team from the other place that won the championship. It's not the same team. It wouldn't be the same team if we were in the same location. Once you make it to the top of the mountain, you realize that there's more mountain to climb. So even though we have some guys here who have, played an extremely high level, the challenge is still different. The challenge is still, how do you improve? Even our best players still have room to improve. Our new players still have room to improve. I feel good about where we are as a program because of Coach Rahne's philosophy on us not playing scrimmages. I don't know how we're going to react to adversity. You can manufacture adversity in practice and you can talk about it, but until there's a tangible moment in a game where they have to respond, you don't really know how you're going to respond. And I think there's multiple ways to respond. And we've been talking about it and we're prepared for it. Obviously, if we could, map out how the game was going to go, we would always be a lot more prepared. But that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to play a phenomenal game to have a chance to win. I don't want to sound like the coach that's, oh, well, we're going to win every game. No, we're going to play extremely well. There's some things that are going to give us a challenge. Their tempo is real. It's hard to manufacture that in practice with a scout team. They've got some really good players. They have a quarterback. If you got a quarterback, you got a chance. They've got some really good players. They've invested a lot of, I guess it's called rev share now, but they've invested a lot of resources into some new players. I'm a strong believer that year 2 in any program is always better. So we don't expect to see the same team that we were watching on film now from last year. We expect a brand new team. I think Coach Lebby and his staff have a very intentional plan about how they wanted to build this thing from the ground up. And I think you can see that with some of the acquisitions they've had. You can see that with some of the transformations in scheme and transformations in bodies throughout the year last year. So we're expecting a challenge. Excited about the opportunity to play an SEC team here in Hattiesburg. I think as we really start to dive into where the college landscape is going, I think we have to do more of this in order for schools of our size to be able to sustain success at a high level. So I appreciate Mississippi State. I appreciate our administration for thinking outside the box and figuring out how we can still keep money in the state with competitive games like these. So excited for the opportunity. Got a lot of work to do between now and 11 o'clock. Our guys are taking one day at a time to put ourselves in the best position for Saturday.
Hey, Coach. Mentioned or you answered a lot of the questions I was going to ask about Mississippi State's offense.
I try to do that so you guys don't hold me very long. I learned that from Butch.
Oh, nice work. So you got a tough secondary in Mississippi State, for example. Here, I was wondering if you can speak to the things that they do well and how you've evaluated them for your game this week.
Yeah, I think the athleticism jumps out. When you look at their size and their length, this game of football is yields itself to big athletic people. The more of those you have, the better opportunity you have to be successful. And you look at their length on the edge, speaking more of the corners, you look at their speed and their athleticism, it's going to be a challenge for us. And then I think their safeties are very headsy players, have very good instincts. They play well near the ball. They play well in the middle of the field. And I think what they've done, just from my, what we have to watch on them, I think the coaches have done a good job in putting them in positions to be successful. They're not asking them to do a lot of things that they're not capable of doing, which is allowing them to play a lot faster.
Awesome. And only other question I had was wanted to ask about one of your former players. Sounds like Cam Fancher is going to have an opportunity to start for Central Florida. Wondering if you can just speak to the intangibles and the characteristics, or the rather the characteristics and the qualities that he's exhibited to put himself in this position again.
Yeah, obviously it's been a while since I've been with him, but I thought he had, all the tools to be a great player. When he was with us, he did a phenomenal job. Obviously he's athletic, he's really smart, understands the game, has the ability to make all the throws. I think he's been a couple different places now and he's had success. I haven't really dove into it, so I'm not sure how he's doing there or what system they're running, but he's always been a guy that I thought had leadership skills. I always thought he had, the athleticism to play at a really high level. Did a phenomenal job for us, so really happy for him.
Hey, Coach, guys, has it changed the way you scout teams? Because like Mississippi State and like you guys brought in so many players. Do you look at coaching tendencies? Do you go back and watch what players did at their former schools? How much has scouting changed, especially with Mississippi State coming in the portal era?
Yeah, it's changed. We've even gone back and watched some of the transfers that maybe don't have as many college snaps. We've watched some of their high school film to just kind of get a gauge of what type of player they are. Obviously, when you have this much time to prepare for an opponent, it's different than when you got 4 days. So we've been able to try to dive a little bit deeper, but you still don't know. I mean, you're watching high school film from a guy from 2 years ago. I mean, he's probably put on 20 or 30 pounds. He's probably learned, what moves he's good at. But it gives you a gauge of athleticism. It gives you an opportunity to kind of semi-prepare. You really got to really focus on what you do well. And you really got to rely on teaching your schemes holistically so that if the front that you're expecting doesn't show up, your kids aren't shell-shocked. If the concept or pass concept that you're expecting doesn't show up, your kids are able to know what to do within your schemes. So it really helps putting the focus on us. They're going to have some things that we haven't seen. They're going to have some players that we aren't able to scout. So we got to be able to kind of adjust and do what we do and do it well. And then as the game goes on, we got to kind of help our guys kind of put some tendencies together based off what we think, based on their systems and what we think they're going to do. And as the game goes on, we got to be able to kind of help our guys with, hey, here's what they're doing in this formation, or here's what they're doing in this front. And then hopefully our players are able to recall all of the reps we've taken in camp, all of the different looks that we've taken throughout the summer.
Hey, Coach. Amidst all the changes, Braylon does have a lot of familiarity with his receiver, some top targets from Marshall coming over to Southern Miss this year. I'm just curious from your perspective, how do you think that can help your offense come out on Saturday and, not experience those growing pains that you may see early in the season?
Well, there's going to be growing pains, so make sure you print that one. So I don't want the fans to be shocked at all. There's going to be a lot of growing pains. When you fight the big bad SEC, you're going to learn real quick that you got a lot of room to improve. But I think just anytime you have continuity, it's a positive. We're running some different plays, so it's not like, hey, he's thrown this route, since this time last year he's thrown that route. But I think again, it's just understanding the timing. It's understanding who likes to win how. It understands, who you can put the ball on, who you can put it out in front, who typically comes out of their break, faster, who's more of a, possession guy. Some of the things that we're doing, there's going to be some decision making, You get a gauge of, what decisions certain guys like to make based off of certain looks. And then again, I think it helps with the communication, right? Like, are we seeing the same thing, quarterback to receiver? Are we seeing the same coverage? Do you see it like I see it? Hey, I saw this as cover, whatever. Did you see it that way? Hey, if they play this coverage, this is how I'm going to react. So you should be able to react a certain way. So I think that helps, just the communication and the continuity. Again, there's going to be growing pains, right? A lot of it, we could have the exact same team from last year, and the opponent is going to dictate a lot of what you're able to do and how you're able to do it. So I think that's a big piece as well. Yes, there is some continuity, but different opponent, different scheme. There's going to be some growing pains, as you say. That doesn't mean that we're not going to be successful or not going to complete a pass. There's just going to be some opportunities where hopefully there'll be the ability to communicate. We can communicate through some things as the game goes on, rather than saying, well, I don't know how this player reacts to this or how he's going to react.
Notice depth chart didn't release one, and I know you don't want to go into detail what's all that, but I'm just kind of, how many do you have guys that maybe you still aren't sure what positions they're going to start? Maybe you don't want to say which ones, but kind of how many position battles do you still have going on in camp, in practice right now, leading up to the game, if you do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to make their job easy. I mean, they're in the SEC. They're already up 11 and a half points, right? So until the Sun Belt makes a rule, no, to be honest, there's still some positions we don't know. And that's because obviously some guys, we've got so many new guys that all the way up until, really today, maybe tomorrow, some guys are still developing, I mean, to be completely honest, we made some changes. You were here. We made some changes with some guys on the O-line, left to right, guard to tackle. And this is really some of those guys' second week in that position. So to give them the true, honest, hey, you have a chance to develop, you're making some progress. That's a big piece of it. And then the other thing, which you guys don't understand, as soon as the depth chart comes out, I got to deal with the mental disposition of telling a guy, hey, you're not the starter. You are the starter. His agent's going to call. He should transfer if he's not starting. His mom's going to call. Well, I thought he was going to play. And the depth chart means nothing because that's just the first 11 guys that run out there. And I get it from a media standpoint, from the fan standpoint. But in the building, we want our guys to go out and compete every day. I don't want a guy to change how he competes because a piece of paper came out and said he was the second guy, not the first guy. So it's kind of a combination of things. One, we're not there yet. I would imagine if we had a little better feel for exactly what our opponent was going to be doing, we'd be able to say, hey, this guy is the best in this spot for this week. If we had a little better feel on 80 new guys, giving them an honest opportunity to continue to develop, we would know. There's some positions we know, right? There's no secret. Braden's going to be the starting quarterback. So everyone can, you don't have to look at pregame warm-up, see who's going to go out there with the ones. That's the reality of it. Now, does that mean he's going to take every snap for the rest of the year? No, he has to continue to improve. But there's some positions that we just don't know yet. And that's not a, coach speak, or that's not, trying to be coy or whatever. Like literally there's probably 2 or 3 spots that we're still debating on. And it's a good debate, right? Because obviously there's debate, like it's not just solidified. And then obviously, what is our opponent going to do kind of dictates some of that as well. Are we playing, more, of one position or less of one position? Is it 2 tight ends or is it 3 tight ends? So there are some things that kind of still are going into that. We've got a good feel, to be honest, and most of our guys have a good feel. But there's still a couple things that are still, to me, developing. And I don't want to create the, the agent world of, oh, you're not the starter day one. I'm going to start shopping you around to try and find a home. That's just not what I want to create, 6 days out from, a game. Because it actually, in 6 days, that person may end up playing way more plays than the alleged starter. But it's just the world we live in now. So we've got to be strategic about how we help the kids understand the process and not get focused on a piece of paper that's going to come out at noon. And really by the end of the day, you guys are going to leave it in our press box and throw it away anyway. So I don't know if it means anything. it's just my philosophy. I probably am, everybody probably hates me, but until 6 days from now, and I'm undefeated and probably should retire now before we lose a game.
For our media, we're joined now by South Alabama head coach Major Applewhite. Coach, is mind kicking it off with an opening statement?
Yeah, I'm just excited to get going this Saturday. Had a good fall camp. Just like everybody else, got some bumps and bruises, a few things unfortunate in fall camp. That usually happens when you have 25 practices in a month. But our guys are excited. Our coaches are excited. We've had a good fall camp. I'm ready to get going at home this Saturday against Morgan State.
Coach, I've heard, obviously, and I went to one of the practices. I heard that, the defense was looking very strong, but I'm trying to figure out, too, being an offensive guy yourself, where are you guys developing at? Are you developing more along the line, the quarterback, the athletics position? Kind of give me an update on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere in terms of development in all portions of our team. There's not one that's playing at an elite level to where there's, we need to turn our eyes elsewhere. Everybody needs to develop. Offensively speaking, though, you've got more guys coming back on the offensive line. Your left tackle's back, your left guard, right guard, and center are back. We've got a new right tackle, playing some new bodies at tight end, but really it's your skill. You lost your quarterback to the portal, you lost your running back to the portal, you lost two guys who are doing really well in NFL camps, and Jamal Pritchett with the Jets and Webb with the Patriots. You also lost two other seniors in Javon Ivory, who was glue in that group. A lot of know-how. May not got the ball thrown to him a lot, made plays when it was thrown to him, but understood where to line up and how to execute. Same thing with Shamar Sangren. So you had four guys that could go out there and play. So there's some youth at wideout. There's a little bit of youth at running back. PJ Martin and Kentrell Bullock both carried the ball last year. But if you're having to pinpoint an area on offense, and I think they perform well during spring practice, but there's just more guys gaining playing experience at the wideout position.
Coach Applewhite, you guys, start your non-conference portion of your schedule with Morgan State, but you get through your first 4 games at home. This being the first one, what's something that, with your team that you really need to see out of this and expectations for your team in the first week in this home matchup against Morgan State?
Well, I want to see us play the right kind of ball, in terms of the effort, the physicality on offense and defense. I want to see us play clean. What does that mean? Penalties, decrease penalties. That's a goal from this year. I thought our penalty number was way too high last year. So I want to see us play clean on offense, protect the football, stay out of our own way in terms of penalties. Defensively, I want to see us run around and be physical. Morgan State's going to have a lot to do with that. They're a good ball club. They're not a team that's, strange to winning. They know what winning looks like. They've got a really good defense. They've been ranked, Sewell's done a great job with that group. Their staff does a good job. You can kind of tell, you can kind of feel the continuity in what they've done year to year. And they get a couple of their better players back. So that's what I hope to see in the first game.
Coach, and then one follow-up for you, just, the first week can be foundational for how a season might go. It could be, not even close to how the season might go. But for you, back-to-back bowl wins, you guys are on a really strong trajectory as a program in terms of getting to postseason and playing important games late in the season. What do you got? What's going to be the first step to know that you guys are capable of taking another step this year?
Honestly, I think I'd have to just kind of continue to evaluate that throughout the season. The first game is going to tell you a ton. I mean, it's going to tell you a ton in terms of just what you thought versus what you saw. And you're always going to learn a lot from week 1 to week 2. How much you develop, how much you grow is how intentional you are on your mistakes and how you point those things out and focus on them from week 1 to week 2. But we'll learn a lot about our team. I'm not trying to give a bland answer. That's just the reality of it. We think we know, but we got to go out there and kick the ball off, see them play situations, see them play over the course of 3.5 hours. A 12-minute segment on third down is different in practice as opposed to 3.5 hours where they're intermittently dispersed in there and you have to dial into the situation. Same thing with red zones. It's easy when you put the ball down there at the 18 and everybody's down on that end of the field in practice. But when it comes through the course of a drive, how can you dial into those situations? So we'll learn a ton. We'll learn a ton about ourselves on Saturday.